some of the old schools, they're more focused on revenue generation, but they need to understand how big a risk it is if we don't concentrate on cybersecurity.
Honestly, the 6-year-old plant manager that I was telling you about, he's the guy double-clicking on the emails on his engineering laptop that's running the entire factory. So,
because I'm getting mixed messages. Some people are saying it's really hard to find really good talent out there versus, oh, it's so easy to find people out there. So how are you finding it?
Oh, it's so easy to find them. It's so easy to find them.
Welcome back to Raw AI Solutions, the podcast where we explore how leaders are navigating the fast-moving world of AI and digital transformation. I'm your host, Denise Powell, and today we are joined by Anthony George, CEO and founder of George Consulting and Engineering, GCE in short, helping ambitious leaders deliver complex change without losing internal alignment or momentum. So lovely to have you with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Would you like to kick us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
I'm Anthony George. I founded George Consulting and Engineering. I spent 20 years as a reservist for the Air Force, Navy, and ultimately the Air Force, ending in cyber warfare. So I did cyber warfare operations for industrial control systems for the United States military. As a reservist, my full-time job, I was an engineer for defense contractors, systems engineering. So systems engineering paid my bills, but cybersecurity allowed me to serve my country in the part-time role. 3 years ago, I moved back from Italy, where I was working as an engineer for Raytheon, or a defense contractor, and started GCE. Initially, we were industrial cybersecurity, but we quickly pivoted into the Industry 4.0 integration space, and that's where we currently serve our customers now.
And what do you do in that space?
So we walk into legacy manufacturing, so existing manufacturing that I'm in the Midwest of America, so there's lots of existing manufacturing, so the machines are old. How do we overlay technology on those machines so that you can capture some of these gains that machine learning, AI, robotics can even help your business compete against some of these larger organizations, or what's happening clearly on the coast, clearly in Germany, Japan, China even are doing these things. How does the Midwest of the United States get access to technology that typically is only available to these large companies? So that's the space that GCE honestly thrives in.
I was going to ask you to tell us your journey about how you got there. So, well, thank you for that. In today's episode of this podcast, we're going to be exploring why even the smartest CEOs struggle to keep teams aligned during change and what we can actually do to fix it. So, Anthony, you've advised CEOs through some heavy transformations. What's the most common disconnect you see between leadership intent versus actual team reality?
So as a leader, I'm very process-driven, solutions-driven, and output-driven. So I see X and Y happens, Z is clearly the direction we need to move. And if I don't communicate, or what I call over-communicate with my team, they don't always see the vision of where we're going or why I'm pivoting. And so it's hard to get buy-in sometimes, where to me it's cut and dry. The numbers say this, the technology says this, the data says to move in this direction, we need to move this direction, but oftentimes my team that follows me may not have the entire picture. So you're essentially wanting buy-in from your organization or from the organization that you're serving. Honestly, it's the organization that I serve is where I have more problems of buy-in. That plant manager that's been there for 30 years who doesn't understand the technology. So it's getting buy-in across the organization.
Yeah, and I think the key there is that over-communication. It is so critical. You cannot over-communicate enough, especially to get that alignment across your organization.
Yeah.
When a company is like scaling fast or going through massive big shifts and changes, where does clarity tend to break down first? Is it in the communication or even accountability or execution?
For one, I have my own deficiencies overlaid on top of this question. So, of course, I have a team. So one of the struggles I had as a team was the integration or the organization of the projects. So the biggest breakdown, I think, is having clear goals set and measurables on those goals. And then as you start to approach those goals, of celebrating wins along the way.
Absolutely. And it's all about that, so you can see that you actually are delivering, and there's measurables, tangible outputs as well on that. Do you think most CEOs are actually getting real-time visibility into what's working and what's and where they're stuck? Um, and are they managing that real time or through lagging indicators or latent reports, etc.?
This is an excellent question. So, what I deal in oftentimes is I'm taking a manufacturing, I work in manufacturing. I'm taking manufacturing organizations from paper through digital. So, paper is never real time. It's real time for the person who writes it on the piece of paper, but then it flows up the chain of command and it might go to the production manager, ultimately to the general manager of the organization, and then maybe to the president and then the CEO. The CEO is acting on information. Well, let's just talk about the supervisor. He's acting, he or she or them, they are acting on information that is happening at the end of a shift. So they're acting on information that is essentially up to 8 hours, 12 hours late. And then as you move up the organization, all the way to the CEO is acting on information that is quarters late. So they're acting on information that happened quarterly. What we're trying to do is capture that information in real time. So every single person has access to the information of the organization digitally in real time in the ways that they understand it, in the formats that they understand.
And when you try and implement that in a company, I'm sure that there's a lot of resistance, especially for people that have been in the company for ages and this is how we do things. Or do you find people are really embracing the new technology?
I wish I had my prop right here. I have a flip phone I carry around sometimes, and it's a prop in a way that someone that pulls out a flip phone is not going to understand digital transformation as someone that pulls out this, you know.
Yeah.
And so the buy-in can come. You have excuse me for any boomers that may watch here, but I call it the boomer problem, right? So they've had the same technology for a long time, and they're scared to move. They've had failures in the past, um, but how do we either a convince them, and sometimes, and this is just a number that I read that I have seen, is 18% of people cannot adjust to these changes. They can't. I was on a manufacturing floor the other day, and I handed a tablet to a gentleman, and he did not understand to swipe to unlock it. Um, that's not a common problem at that level. I asked him, "Do you have grandkids? I mean, what's going on, man?" And so it's like this person is gonna. He's clearly needed. He has lots of tribal knowledge, and there's lots of information we need to get from him. So we need either to upskill him or move him to a place where he can serve. But putting him in the middle where technology meets, he is not one that's going to embrace the change.
Yeah. And especially with AI coming up and AI being the new buzzword, where it was cloud a few years ago, and prior to that was like digital. Um, so with AI coming to place, are you finding that a lot of people are too fearful to embrace it, and fearful in that they think that their jobs might be replaced if they do embrace it, or even fearful there's so much out there they don't know where to begin and therefore rather not touch it because it's the fear of the unknown? Or do you think companies are really like open arms and they just really want to start to embrace AI? What are you experiencing?
Well, answering any question on AI is dangerous because I've looked at stuff I answered 6 months ago and it's not doesn't quite line up. So it changes quickly. Um, so we're having situations where AI doesn't necessarily work. So I've had projects that did not succeed well because AI did not, it was vision systems, and you mixed in different types of lighting, essentially skylighting, factory lighting, changing through seasons, changing through shifts. Now the AI can't make guesses on what color it's seeing and what finish it's seeing as well. So the technology doesn't always apply straightforward like you think it would. Um, but it certainly is a disruptive technology, as much so as computers. When the IRS brought in computers, it needed less accountants, but it was almost a direct correlation to the number of IT personnel they brought in. So we're at this point where we're not losing jobs necessarily, they're changing in what they're doing. So it absolutely is something you need to use, and we found great success around scheduling, with maintenance and scheduling of production runs with it. So there is uses for AI, absolutely, but it's not the silver bullet that fixes all your problems right away. We spend a lot of time cleaning, normalizing, contextualizing data, and getting it ready to go. Because if an organization comes to me and says, I want AI, first of all, it's like, what do you want AI for? But second is, where's your data? There's no data. So we have no picture over time to even use the AI on. So we got to start creating the data. We need to collect the present to show the past, and we need the past to predict the future. And without this, we cannot make this possible.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely key there, data, that is so critical. You get a good data that goes in and you get good data that comes out. But if your data is in a state, it doesn't matter how good the AI tool is going to be, it will give you terrible outcomes.
Hmm.
But it is so powerful, especially with machine learning. And you have massive corporations that are actually now predicting when machine parts would need to be replaced before they even break down, and so therefore not disrupting or disturbing production lines. And so there's a lot of good that's out there, but as you said, you need to have the historic data in order to predict the future data. How much is that? How much does that impact your business?
So quite a bit. So I'll use an example. I have a food manufacturer that I'm working for. It's scheduling around food that goes in blenders, spices, salts, peppers. Think of those things. So somebody calls, I want 20,000 pounds of this spice. So they can sit there, they can run it in a certain order where the allergens don't conflict, colors don't conflict. You don't need to clean the whole blender out. And they have keep this all in a spreadsheet. I take that spreadsheet and I ingest it. They got years of this spreadsheet, so I ingest the data, and it's not in the exactly the right format, so there's some cleaning. But then I use this AI tool to start scheduling the blenders. Well, the AI tool would give us false answers around the blenders, and so I'd say, so I went back to the organization. They'd say they told me no, we needed a washout instead of a blowout here because of the situation. Well, I didn't program anything. What I programmed is your schedule from the past. I don't have what actually went in the blenders. All I have is what was scheduled to go in the blenders, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so if somebody on the factory floor deviates from that because the humidity in the room is too high, or they know that this product is not available right now in real time, they'll deviate because production is king. Like their job is to make things come out of the back of that factory. If things don't come out of the back of your factory, they are failing. So production managers don't care what you put in the ERP when it comes time to deliver the product. That's what I'm seeing is the data is enriched by humans on the factory floor, and so I'm missing some of that data. Temperature and humidity mattered in this example, so if I could have access to the humidity of the room, I would know whether I needed a washout or a blowout. But that's a feel situation. The operator walks in and feels the room. I don't have a sensor that feels like that.
It's incredible. It's amazing what AI can do, actually. But I don't think it will ever fully remove the human element because, as you said, you also need people to think on their toes when they're out there and things are happening. Actually, that doesn't work right now. I've got a gut sense this needs to change right now. What role does content, okay, whether it's internal messaging or project updates, leadership narratives, what role does that play in driving alignment across the change journey?
Okay, yeah. So configuration change management is very important, um, especially so we're an Industry 4.0 company, so we were only founded about 2 years ago, which gives us a big advantage in the market compared to some of these other companies. We use all the tools, Slack, Google Meets, all those things. So, and my team tends to be a lot younger, so we're used to these tools. We're used to using and communicating in this way, unlike some of these ingrained. I get the benefit of being a modern company and working with companies that aren't modern. Some of these machines, when I walk onto the factory floor, are in the 50s and the 60s, and they still absolutely do their job, and they're rock solid machine presses that will probably run for another 50 years without any technology really built into them. Um, so communicating and um, keeping everybody on the same page is difficult. Especially, I have students that work for me, so they have schedules that they're working with. Um, it's important. It's important. I think it's one of the most underrated things in the change of the organization.
Yeah, I actually agree with you there. Have you seen teams, and maybe not because you're quite a modern organization, but have you seen companies that are too dependent on manual processes or fragmented tools when they've got like 10 different systems that they have to go through to get anything done? And what does that do to their ability to stay aligned when change is moving so quickly?
So I think staying aligned when changes. So you always have this J curve whenever you're adopting technology, and the J curve essentially just means that you're going to lose efficiency before you gain massive efficiency. So to stay aligned during these fast moving changes um, is honestly, it almost feels like I spend my time inspiring when this happens. So when people don't want to move or don't want, because a lot of the people, especially on the factory floor, will see it's tough. I'm trying to answer this question from either side. I'm trying to answer from the manufacturing organizations that I work for or my own company. So the companies I work for, I help them get through this. So what does my company do? We go in there. X, Y points us at Z. This is the technology we need to do. This is the processes we're looking at. To me, that's cut and dry. I'm an engineer. That's what I look at. This is how we move forward. What I will do sometimes is I will forget about the people that I don't forget. I don't take appropriate action towards helping and inspiring the people on the factory floor for adopting these changes. So I go down on the factory floor and I let them know what this is doing. This is here to help you. This is here to make you safer. This is here to improve the product. This isn't here to take your job away. This is here to make sure that this company exists when this all ends. So if you help me get this happening, because I need buy-in from the operators. If I deliver a tool that's a dashboard that they're supposed to use, and the operator needs to let me know what part is running on that, and he's like, I don't care, I ain't doing that, and I get that across the organization, I got to show up on site, and it's not like, hey man, you got to do this. It's like, this is what's happening. This is why I need it. This isn't so that I can measure your individual performance on this machine. This is so I can know that if you set this machine runs 20% more. There's a way you set this machine up that I need to know about so the next guy can set it up because your efficiency is high, or your efficiency is low, or you're better on this machine over here, or machine runs these parts better. I need all this information to have the whole picture of the environment. So it is a lot of time spending motivating and inspiring the people. And I will see that when me or my team is off site or working remotely, they adopt the stuff less. So what we're seeing now is we actually need a support contract that once the technology is delivered, we need to be able to step in there and support it so that we can be sure that it gets used in the proper ways and doesn't fall wayside to some of these other um, failed initiatives that happen.
Yeah, completely. And it is that adoption. It doesn't. You can put the best tools in place, but you need the company to actually adopt it and follow those processes and everything that's been put into place. And you're so right. I also agree. What I've definitely seen in companies that I've worked for in the past, and also some of my clients, is that remote is great, but when you're actually on site and you're there to support and make sure things are actually being adopted and the culture of the company starts to accept it and realizes it's there for their benefit, then you start seeing the massive efficiency that those new tools and processes are driving. Have you seen any low lift tech solutions like AI help close the alignment gaps? Or is that mostly still theoretical in your world?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. We call it low hanging fruit. That's something I brought over from cybersecurity. So there's some quick fixes for cybersecurity that you can bring in, that are not these $1 million solutions, but kind of just configurations that you already have that you just need to put in place. So the low hanging fruit to go after, almost always it's just dashboards. It's getting the information you already have or getting very easy to get information on dashboards. A lot of people are familiar with Grafana being one of them. So Grafana is one of the tools we use, but something like that. You can get on this dashboard and you can see your OEE of your organization in real time and see, oh, the performance is in this factory in this plant is low. Dig down. You get in the plant. Okay, machine 6 is down. Why? Dig down. Okay, it's part starved. It doesn't have raw material. Okay, I, as the CEO or the president, can stand up from my chair, walk down on the factory floor, or make a phone call or whatever, and solve that problem in real time. Versus the other way of doing it is a quarter late, they get the report and they can't solve that problem that happened. They can only be aware of the problem and solve it in the future. So it's almost always getting the information you already have in dashboards and the humans using this AI tool they already have in their brain to drive decisions from that. And then once we get in the dashboards, then we have the data in a way that AI can understand it as well. So now we start marrying the two together so that we can drive the change. But it's even displaying to operators in a dashboard how they are doing gives you that 20% bump in production because humans are competitive by nature. The guy next to you is doing more, you know. And so there are easily low lift technologies that you can implement, and I would encourage all integrators or all people to go after those low lift things. You don't need to go after this whole organizational change. What we do is we pick a project somewhere in your organization, straightforward. Hey, I need to count the parts coming out of that machine press. Okay, great. Couple sensors, maybe a camera for quality assurance, HMI or a dashboard so the operator can let me know what's going in the machine, who it is. Okay, we deploy it there, we like it. Now we do it across that whole cell. So it's a group of 5 machines. Okay, we like it. We work on it, work on it, work on it until we love it. Then we scale across the organization. So it's a land and expand and then work together. It's iterative. It's a software development lifecycle deal. It's not a $1 million up front. It's like $25,000. Let's get you something in place. If you like it, good, it scales. If you don't like it, we pivot or we go our separate ways or whatever the solution is at that point.
When you're working with a CEO who's open to new tools and approaches, what's the signal that says actually they are truly ready to adopt something transformative versus they just in theory want to?
So probably the easiest way for me to decide this is outbound.
Mm-hmm.
If they call me, if they call me, they're looking for something different. There's Industry 3.0 integrators sprinkled all over this town. There's not Industry 4.0 Industry 4.0 integrators in this town. So if they're reaching out to me, they're understanding that there's something different. My background, I have an electrical background from the time I was in the Navy, but my degree's in computer programming. My certifications are in cybersecurity. I am not a traditional controls guy. So the fact that they're reaching out to me is the number one indicator. The number two indicator is typically, and I hate to say this, is age, you know, and it's not always cut and dry like this. I'm just saying these are,
Yeah.
my executive coach had me make an avatar of my ideal customer and they were like 45 years old. So they were my age, they live in that world of like, I grew up, I'm 42. So I grew up in analog and I transitioned to digital. So I've already done this for my own life. So someone who's gone through that and understands, and then if they bring up data, if they just bring up data in one of the early conversations, and if they have a goal, like if they're saying, hey, someone's telling me that we need to be modern, and then they come to me, that's a much harder client to deal with because I got to sit there and figure out what you are actually wanting versus like, hey man, I went to another factory and I saw this technology. I think this applies to us. Can you get us there? So having a goal. My first conversation in any organization is almost always educational. It's almost always just telling them what's there. So having you know the open-mindedness to ask the question.
Absolutely. You touched several times on cybersecurity. That is so critical, especially with AI. Um, on a scale from 1 to 10, do you think it's the most critical thing, or do you think data is more critical in cybersecurity?
That's difficult. So I spent a lot of time working for the United States government, controlling the most critical assets that the United States has. Think power grid, think power grid. Essentially, my role was to sign up, show up on site, think like a hacker, decide how hackers would get in, and then secure all those attack vectors. So I worked in those. There's certainly the risk outweighs. What is your appetite for risk? Let's just say that. So if you're working in petrochemical, oil and gas, nuclear, life sciences, pharma, the risk isn't there. You don't want to connect those things, or you want to connect them in very, very secure ways. So it's, um, but you can't not move, especially in some of these industries, based on cybersecurity. So when the IT staff comes to me and says, we're not going to do that because it's a risk to our organization, my recommendation is to replace the IT staff, because the IT staff should be going from compliance and regulation to enablement. They should be driving your business forward versus holding your business back. So if your director of IT is the person that says no to these tools and moving forward because they don't want the additional work or the additional risk, and there's a lot of risk mitigations out here. I mean, I'm certified. I'm a certified information system security professional. So high level cyber for the whole entire organization. So there are mitigations to all these risks: multi-factor authentication, firewalls, physical barriers. There's ways to mitigate the risk. So don't not move because of cyber. I think the data is more important than the risk associated. But what is your mean time to recovery or repair? If you get hit by a cyber attack, how quickly can we get widgets coming back out of the factory?
Yeah.
Be ready. Be ready for it. It's coming. But I mean, if you do it right, you can be up and running in hours and not days or weeks or never.
Hmm. I find a lot of old school companies, they don't tend to place a lot of emphasis on cybersecurity as much as what they should be placing on that. I think some of the old school, they're more focused on revenue generation, but they need to understand how big a risk it is if we don't concentrate on cybersecurity. And you do need that forefront thinking. Let's put this into place.
That's a great point. Um, I would honestly say so. Cybersecurity is honestly the 60-year-old plant manager that I was telling you about. He's the guy double clicking on the emails on his engineering laptop that's running the entire factory. So the people who are technologically deficient are the ones that are actually introducing the risk to your organization. Technology actually ups your cybersecurity posture because the things that we're bringing in, the I bring in infrastructure. So you tie this old machine to my infrastructure, and then the infrastructure ties to the internet. So you have this secure boundary that sits between your machine and the internet. So adding the technology lowers your cybersecurity risk. But what I honestly, the biggest problem I see around that is misconfiguration. So it's not even cybersecurity, it's someone in your organization misconfiguring something and introducing risk in that way. So there's certainly not a lack of risk out here for organizations right now, but now is not the time to lock your computer in a room and don't do anything with it. And now's the time you got to move and you got to figure out how to get through it. And you just got to partner with somebody that knows what's up.
I think that is absolutely key. You do need to partner with, if you, especially if you don't know what you're doing, partner with someone who knows what they are doing. Because if you don't start to embrace this, you're going to be left behind.
It's like computers. It's
Yeah.
like electricity. The industrial revolutions, machines, electricity, computers, the internet, that's the fourth. The fifth is AI. I don't go in any place that doesn't have machines, computers, or electricity. So pretty soon they're going to have the internet, and I'm talking about the internet on the factory floor, and connecting the machines, and then AI. So if you don't go through this, so what we're happening now is the fourth and the fifth, the internet and AI for factories is the same as the second and third, electricity and computers. So it's really difficult for owners right now.
So, looking to the next stage of GCE, where do you think, where would you like to take your company over the next 6 to 12 months?
So we're relatively new, so I'm hiring quite a bit right now. Some people in my organization to help my um, organizationally help. So we are doing quite well in the city of Wichita and the middle of America, and there's lots of aviation manufacturing here, and we're doing quite well. So we would like to pivot into a new market. So we're looking at additional markets, possibly like Omaha, 1.3 million people, got some manufacturing. So we're going to add an additional market and go to scale. We're going to go to scale.
That's outstanding. How are you finding hiring people at the moment? Because I'm getting mixed messages. Some people are saying it's really hard to find really good talent out there because you're competing with much larger organizations with bigger bonuses, sign-on bonuses, versus oh, it's so easy to find people out there. So how are you finding it?
Oh, it's so easy to find them. It's so easy to find them. So I retired from the Kansas Air National Guard right down the road here. I have friends all day long that work in that organization, cybersecurity professionals. I have access to Wichita State University here. I was a project manager for their smart factory for a short time, so I designed and architected that. So I go down there. I get resumes sent to me. I get people going to work for free. I think young people, if you are, excuse me for rattling that, I think young people are excited to work if you give them the type of work they want. The problem is manufacturing looks like your grandfather's manufacturing. I'm not in overalls right here. I have people that do that, but it's not oily and greasy. I have guys working manufacturing that are in their basements, at home and working the robots and stuff that way. So I think if you provide the type of jobs that young people want,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think the talent is plentiful. And tech industry is hurting right now. And a lot of it's like my team is software developers, but a slight retraining and they're ready to go. So as long as they're able to learn and they're excited, I think talent is plentiful. But I don't know, we're a cool place to work.
That's brilliant. Also, I think attitude plays a big part there, and especially it's so lovely being around people that are desiring to work and excited where business is going, and yeah, it's really great. And so, tell me, what are the biggest challenges that you're facing right now in GCE?
It's how do I help as many people as possible. Budgets aren't huge. We're working in manufacturing, and I do small medium. So I'm not targeting the United States Navy or Cargill or companies like that. I'm targeting small and medium. So they are budget constrained. I came from a world where I worked for the United States government, and if I needed a server farm, I just wrote down what I needed on a piece of paper and I handed it to them, and it was installed and running. There's no consideration about costs, essentially. I mean, at least not on my end. And I work in costs now. So, how do I help this end user in the budget that they can afford, get them the technology that they can afford right away? So, we spend a lot of time driving value. So, I try to drive value and then pay for it with ROI from other projects.
Mm, mm. Must must be quite hard because when you're trying to scale, you're looking for new clients, but then you also, when you get the new clients, you need to make sure that your own internal infrastructure is ready with the resources to be able to support that and get that delivered for those clients as well. And it's a hard balance as you're trying to move forward. And as you said, it's not a lot of money in engineering. People don't have massive budgets, especially if you're targeting small to medium size. That must be a really hard balance to fill. Do you have people sitting? Do you have like work colleagues that sit on the bench and then when you need them, you activate them? Or do you use the same internal people?
So this is actually something that my company has struggled with. So I'm a CEO, but I've had to act as essentially a COO several times. The first, almost visionary integrator, if people are familiar with that term, but my integrator who makes the projects happen. I've been through some iterations of this person where they weren't necessarily a good fit because they were too similar to me, or for whatever reason, which we finally landed on the right person, so the right person's in the organization. So what I've found is as I go and I inspire the customers and lead them into the digital transformation, and I move on to the next customer to bring them on, inspire them, lead them, sales, essentially. Um, I need to be able to leave that project in good hands with somebody that can still fulfill that project. So it is a balance. It takes a lot of skills to get a company to digitally transform a company. It takes a lot of skills from outside of it. You need to have buy-in from the organization. You need to have someone own it from the organization. When organizations just try to go hands off and be like, "Hey, give us what when you're done," it doesn't work as well. You need someone who's got some real grit in the organization. Doesn't even need to be they don't need to have a C in their name, but they need to have respect around the organization. So when they move around the organization, they say something, they got the buy-in, they got the pull. So you need to find somebody with that. I mean, sometimes it's C-level, but sometimes it's somebody you would not expect that ends up taking control of this. I mean, I have one right now. Um, he's a young man, no college degree, very skillful, doesn't hold a title in the organization of much meaning. I think quality assurance specialist or something is his actual title. Um, but when he walks in the room and talks about technology, everybody in the room respects him because he knows what's up. He is the guy that we have deemed to lead the digital transformation effort at this organization. And that's, you'll see stuff like that.
Absolutely, it's brilliant. And I think where a lot of companies make a massive mistake is, especially on the IT side, oh, this is a new shiny toy, let's implement this, but it's not being driven by the business. And you absolutely have to have someone in the business driving it so it can land properly. There needs to be a business issue or pain point that you actually are resolving. It cannot be IT led, it needs to be business driven, for sure.
The organization needs to take ownership.
Yeah.
It's going to fail. It's going to fail if they don't take ownership. I've been through a number of these to see that if the organization doesn't care, it's going to fail. It doesn't matter how good of the product you bring, how good of a product you deliver. It's going to fail if they don't take ownership of it.
So tell me something. If you could solve one issue with a snap of a finger, what would it be?
I think what I want to do is I want people to understand that the data is the most valuable thing,
Mm-hmm.
and sharing your data across industries and organizations is valuable. So what happens here is if you have a CNC machine and you work in aerospace and you have a CNC machine that's identical, but you work in agriculture, there's actually data that matters between the two. And I think creating data co-ops um, within certain groups of trusted people will actually help all the businesses that do that. So the issue I would solve is the data being disparate and guarded between customers and organizations. So data being non-standardized and shielded and guarded from other people.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Well, Anthony, thank you so much. Very interesting and grounded, refreshingly candid as well. Thank you so much for that. Before we wrap up, what's one piece of advice that you give any other CEO trying to keep their teams aligned when going through change?
I think it's important that you select the right people to try to align. Because if you have somebody in that doesn't try to align, it doesn't matter how good of an engineer they are or how good of a problem solver they are or what background they have. If they are not a good fit for your team, you need to make that decision quickly and you need to move on quickly.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Anthony. Well, if our listeners want to learn more about GCE and connect with yourself, where could they go?
Well, I'm trying to grow my LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Anthony George, in some sort on LinkedIn. Or GCEWichita.com is our website. So either one of those.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Anthony, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, it's been nice. Thank you, Lucy.